Elena?
Just quickly, what I really like with you, the way you teach, Catherine, is that with regards to instincts, you talk about the defense strategies and the needs that, each. I don't really like to talk about the instinctual stack right now. I'm just talking about the lead. So in terms of the defense strategies and the way we get there to fulfill our instinctual needs, that can all look very six-ish, like when these instinctual needs are triggered. So do you think there is like some people may think they have this six-ish energy because, and I'm not talking about SP resources or anything like that. I'm just saying how our nervous system gets triggered when we don't get what we want instinctually. That's hard to kind of really peel back. Do you think there is an overlap in terms of the six-ish quality when it comes to our triggers coming from the instinctual space?
Well, it can, but I do have to say that the self-pres is the defense of the defenses. And if we go back to Echazo's triads, and he called them instinctual triads, which is why Naranjo called his edition the instinctual subtypes. But in those original triads of conservation, which would be the gut types, relation, which would be the heart types, and adaptation would be the head types. So the gut types and self-pres are the same, but different expressions of the same 891. And then 234, it's the heart, and it's also sexual. But each time that Naranjo added the subtypes, it's the more primitive form. So our heart type is a higher function, the center itself, than the instinctual need that you must have your someone to feel safe. And it's got to be a very special someone, and not a lot of someones, and not as a resource, but as a person that will actually look out for you and you look out for them with the mutual reciprocity. But not like social where it's friendliness, it's just knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt that that person will have your back because you're so, in a way, irresistible, or the attachment is really strong, but it's desirability. And that could be any number of things. And then the social is the lower functioning of the head center. And that's why our social subtypes are thinking through things. And they're using language that sounds like the head center. Well, social is just the primitive version of who's who and what do I need to know or learn to be safe. And that's the head center. If you see anywhere that it's written practical knowledge, that's because they're trying to figure out what they need to know. And then they're going to go get it somehow or figure it out. I think I gave you guys the example, like if you went fishing, let's say there's no food and the five figures out that the fish are around at a certain time. And by the reflection of the scales, they can figure out the best place to put their hook or what have you. They've studied it in depth, and they just keep testing, trial, which is why they're so good at documenting processes. And then the seven just says, hey, Mr. Five, why don't we go fishing together? And they use their charm to persuade the person in the know to learn what they need to learn, but it's still the same defense. I must find out what I don't know, and I must learn it. And then the six, being the center of the head center, is like, wait, do I need to go study deeply to learn what the five learns? Or do I need to be charming to get people to teach me or help me? Oh, wait, can I maybe ask the five if they'll teach me? And it's being split and looking at all the options, like all head types, but then the fear is that you're not going to find the right one that will ensure that you're safe. So in a way, if you know that the self-pres is the primitive version of conservation, then if there was a earthquake right now, we would kind of be bracing our body. But I've even had earthquakes where I just keep teaching. but because I think it's just going to pass. But if things started falling, we're all in self-pres in that moment. And this is where actually what we grew up with can be influential. So people who had trauma in childhood and felt a threat to their survival will be more reactive, but it doesn't mean they became self-pres, because research suggests that we are born with these, but our identification with our three types and our three instincts are a different story. So we can be positively, negatively, or neutrally identified. But back to what you were saying, Elena, is that the most important thing many people do not realize is that the core fear of the Enneagram type, when merged with the core fear of the instinct, creates the new focus. Just like the core fears of the three types create the tritype. And it's also the idealized images and the defenses. So it's the same concept all the way through. It doesn't vary, but it can produce very different outcome. So I have found that if someone is a head type and they choose the 6 card, but let's say they chose both 5 cards and put them at the top of my test. Have you all taken the test? No? Well, if you go back and look at your test, see what you chose analogous types. And if you had like 2 head types at the top, and then let's say the 7s, and then you had 2 6s. I even had someone who had 2 5s, so that's 6 head type cards. They're usually a head type. We just have to figure out which one. Often the 6, because that's the middle, but the 7 has a wing of 6 and a line to 5. So there are situations that reverse that, where the 5 has a wing of 6 and a line to 7. So the head type is extremely difficult at finding their type. And if they're counterphobic, not just counterphobic 6, but the counterphobic 7 or the counterphobic 5, they're going to show their agitation more and be more assertive as 5s go or 7s go. And that can slip through, but they'll still be notified about the amount of 6 in their tritype. But what I have found is they've often experienced trauma as a child. So a 7 who's had trauma might choose the 6 cards, but all 6s have wings of both 5 and 7, because to be our type is the tension between the wing before us and the wing after our type.